I want to preface this. I'm not drawing any conclusions, okay? I'm just making an observation. And the observation is that just weeks before the massive vinyl chloride leak and burn-off that is currently poisoning East Palestine, Ohio, and likely compromising the air and water across a much larger geographic region, the CDC changed its toxicology report on vinyl chloride and its FAQ page for the first time in 17 years. Weeks before, possibly as little as 11 days before, but certainly it happened at some point in the month before this accident. So I've got here the toxicology report, the FAQs from 2006. And here you just see a lot more information in the 2006 one. How likely is vinyl chloride to cause cancer? You see a lot of specific information about an increased risk of liver, brain, lung cancer, cancers of the blood. How can vinyl chloride affect children? There's a whole paragraph about that. Has the federal government made recommendations to protect human health? Yes, it says the EPA requires that the amount of vinyl chloride in drinking water not exceed 0.002 milligrams per liter of water. Talks about how much in terms of parts per million can be in the workplace. It's pretty thorough. And then you go to the FAQ on vinyl chloride that just dropped last month. The section on how to protect children is totally gone. The section on cancer is much simplified. There's a lot less detail. The section about how many parts per million or milligrams per liter, that's all gone. So it's just a little, this was January. This is just what are the odds? All I'm saying is just the odds are it's kind of weird. And it isn't nearly as weird as the fact that the whole incident, the whole train derailment, chemical spilling, poison the town incident was depicted in a movie that came out last year, 6-8 months ago, called White Noise, which was not only filmed in the area in which the actual incident would occur, but even included people from East Palestine as extras in the movie. One such extra, an East Palestine resident named Ben Ratner, has told reporters, quote, "The first half of the movie is almost exactly what's going on here." And I'm not making any accusations. I'm actually not, okay? I'm not coming to any conclusions, even though the CDC and the public authorities more broadly have completely squandered their credibility, in particular over the last few years, and have lied to us on several occasions. You know I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm really not. But I am a coincidence noticer. And it's weird. I think I'm going to use that. It just came to me when I was thinking about these stories, the White Noise movie, the toxicology report, the FAQ from the CDC. I said, I'm really not a conspiracy theorist. I always look for the least complex answer for any sort of odd phenomenon. But I definitely am a coincidence noticer. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there is some secret shadowy group of people that are doing all sorts of nefarious things. At the very least, though, there is no such thing as coincidences. You know, modern libs believe that every strange, no matter how big the miracle is, no matter how in your face some kind of miracle is, they'll say, oh, it's just random chance. For Christians, though, for people who are traditionally religious, there's no such thing as coincidences because there's providence and there's an order to the universe. Now, what's going on in this case, in this really bizarre incident in East Palestine, Ohio? Is that just the broad order of the universe? Is that just random chance or something else? I don't know. I do know that it's also really weird how the authorities are downplaying this incident. Had this been a few weeks ago, had you told me there's going to be an environmental disaster that happens anywhere in the West, what's going to happen afterward? I would have said, well, you're going to get all the usual suspects there. John Kerry is going to fly in and demand environmental cleanup. Saint Greta of the Blessed Sailboat, she's going to come in. She's going to say, how dare you trains derail? There would be big protests, massive press conferences. None of that has happened. You had no environmentalists have shown up to protest. The authorities haven't shown up. There's no Joe Biden demanding stricter environmental regulations. His signature legislative accomplishment last year was passing a green bill, right? The climate change bill, which he initially told us was an Inflation Reduction Act, but then admitted almost immediately after it passed, no, this is just about the environment. Okay, you care so much about the environment. Where are you in East Palestine? How come nobody's talking about this? How come everyone wants to play this down? The transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, took a little break from his paternity leave, his perpetual paternity leave, to go on television now, 2 weeks after the incident? And he went on television to downplay the significance of the derailment.
Look, rail safety is something that has evolved a lot over the years, but there's clearly more that needs to be done because while this horrible situation has gotten a particularly high amount of attention, there are roughly 1,000 cases a year of a train derailing.
So it's no big deal. Actually, guys, I know that there is this major derailment where all the water and the air around this area has been poisoned. And I know that actually about 10% of the country gets its drinking water from roughly around this region. But hey, there's a lot of derailments every year. It's really not. It's not a big deal. Move along, move along. These are not the droids you're looking for. It seems like a big deal to me. And it seems like a big deal that the authorities are saying this is not a big deal. That's really weird. Maybe it's that Pete Buttigieg is just trying to CYA. It could be. Maybe he feels that he's totally exposed here and he's a flop of a transportation secretary, a job that is essentially a no-show job. It's one of the least important, least notable jobs in the government. Pete Buttigieg got it, as the Chinese pointed out in their correct propaganda yesterday. He got it as a kind of vanity political appointment to appease some of the left-wing base and to check off some politically correct boxes. But you got to do something, right? Where are the other people? Senator J.D. Vance, new senator from Ohio, he's calling BS on the elected officials and the EPA, which is saying, oh no, the water is totally safe to drink. This kind of thing happens all the time. Move along, move along. Well, J.D. has a challenge for the EPA administrator.
You know, it reminds me of that scene in Erin Brockovich where she puts the water in front of them and says, if you think it's clean, we brought this water from, the community that was affected. Look, I think that if the EPA administrator wants to stand here and tell people that the tap water is safe, by all means, they should be willing to drink it.
Are you?
No, I told Tom, I think that if I was living here, I would drink the bottled water for now. Better safe than sorry, especially since it's being provided for free. That's the guidance I would give. But again, residents are going to make their own decisions on this. But my honest personal advice is I'd be drinking the bottled water right now.
I love the reporter's question. Maybe he meant it in an innocent way, or maybe it was sort of a gotcha, where J.D. Vance says, look, if you really think this is all fine, EPA administrator, come down here right now and drink the water. He says, well, will you drink the water? And J.D. looks a little bit confused almost. He says, no? Did you not hear what? No, I wouldn't drink the water. I think it's poison. And I would drink the bottled water, especially when it's being provided for free. I don't believe the EPA administrator. And I doubt that the EPA administrator believes the EPA administrator. Does anybody seriously believe after, 1 million gallons of this, or 1 million pounds, I sort of forget whatever the measurement is, of this vinyl chloride, to say nothing of the other toxic chemicals that leaked out, then were set on fire, turning to phosgene and sulfuric, or hydrochloric acid rather, and possibly sulfuric acid, but certainly hydrochloric acid. You think that 2 weeks after that, the water's fine, the air is fine? Nobody believes that. In fact, there's a resident of East Palestine who just went out to show you on video how not fine the water is. So this resident goes out to a little creek in the woods. She gets a little piece of wood and throws it into the water. So the water looks fine at first, but then the minute she disrupts the water with the wood, then you see all the chemicals bubble to the top. Just rainbow colors everywhere. You look down, it's like, it's an oil slick. It's worse than an oil slick, though. It's much more poisonous than an oil slick. So it might look fine if you're an EPA administrator. You're going in, you're testing the water, and you're just testing the water on top. Maybe it looks fine. Maybe the point that she's making is all the poison was down there at the bottom. So you throw a rock in, you throw a log in, then those chemicals rise up to the top. So sure, we can all trust that the water is safe in East Palestine, Ohio, the minute that Joe Biden or the EPA administrator or Pete Buttigieg or whoever go and drink it. But none of them are going to do that. This reminds me of in Indian elections, candidates who are running for office in India will often go to Varanasi, this holy city considered very holy in India, and that's where the Ganges is. And they'll go and they'll either wash themselves in the water from the Ganges, maybe they'll jump into the water from the Ganges. Sometimes they'll even drink some of the water from the Ganges, which is horrifying because that's the river where people throw dead bodies that have been burnt along the side of the river, or in some cases even with human flesh on it. And so it's just teeming with bacteria. And then what happens? The people get sick. Well, okay. I give the politicians some credit, actually, in their own religious tradition. They're willing to subject themselves to that. Okay, leftist government administrators, drink that water in East Palestine. Drink that water in East Palestine, which could affect water throughout a lot of the country. Drink that, make us all feel better. Until they do, I ain't buying it. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Go to dailywire.com/Knowles. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.